yoga process who is not very advanced in spiritual life may fall prey to the senses, ushering in distress. Here's a really nice graphic. Hopefully the slide will change. Check it out. Ooh. By fixing oneself at the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master, this is, Haridas Thakur and the prostitute, then one will not be carried away by sex agitation. And of course, we know very well the story of the prostitute that was sent to make Haridas Thakur fall, but it worked the other way around. She became influenced by his chanting of the holy name. The image is showing when she confessed everything, said, go back to your home, give away all the fine items that you've acquired from your professional life, and come back and I'll give you my full mercy. So the full mercy was to become a Lord's devotee, chanting by the Tulsi tree. That nice painting, Haridas Thakur leaves. There she is with a shaved head chanting. And she was maintained because people knew what her profession was, but now she's been transformed. So this is the contemporary example from our scriptures of the benefit of sadhu sangha. And then there's the detriment of being agitated if one isn't properly fixed. Very nice chapter. Devotees remain undisturbed even at times of great misfortune. Good one to learn. The mountains, although being struck by torrents of rain during the rainy season, are not shaken, just as those whose hearts are dedicated to the transcendental personality of Godhead are never disturbed, even when harassed by great misfortune. So in the background, that's the mountains, and they're being harassed by heavy, heavy, heavy rains, but they're not disturbed. So similarly, by dedication to the service of the personality of Godhead, one can remain undisturbed. A person who is spiritually advanced accepts any adverse condition of life as the mercy of the Lord. This is a painting showing a man walking across water, a sadhu of some kind or another. So the crossing of the water by a sadhu isn't only in Western culture or in India. Other persons have such power. Such a tolerant devotee is completely eligible to enter the spiritual kingdom. Such devotees are compared to high mountains, which are never agitated in any way, even when struck by powerful torrents of rain in the rainy season. Nice paintings. Here's one that's not a traditional Chinese painting, but someone that's been mountain climbing or whatever they're doing, looking out over the vista of the cloudy sky and the rivers moving and everything green, and feeling very safe, even though at any moment torrents of rain can come down. Spiritually advanced devotees are never disturbed, even when harassed by great misfortune. Haridas Thakur being dragged through the streets of Pulia on the order of the Qazi. Rather, they accept any adverse condition as mercy of the Lord. So easier said than done. But look closely and you'll see that from the mouth of Haridas, the Maha Mantras come. Humble in spiritual enlightenment, such devotees are free from pride and envy, and they easily gain the mercy of the Lord. This is in Prayag. It's Rupa Goswami receiving instructions from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his heart was completely humble, which helped him being fully receive the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, fully understand him, everything that he was teaching, the highest of high teachings. But that's part of his spiritual enlightenment quality. Very humble. When you have an asset, it's hard to remain humble, or it's very, say it the other way. When you have an asset, it's really easy to become proud. Oh, look at this. But a genuine spiritual quality is humility. Now, the verse is speaking about mystic yogis that don't have that fixed absorption in service. They can, by circumstance of their eternal nature, be agitated. But those that are fixed, dhira. Then the fall of the jiva, forgetting our eternal servitorship to the Lord in the rainy season. Some of the roads are not frequently used and become covered with long grasses, and thus it becomes very difficult to see the road. Similarly, in this age, the transcendental scriptures are not properly studied by the Brahmanas. Being covered by the effects of time, the scriptures are practically lost, and it becomes very difficult to understand or follow them. Look closely in the lower right, there's people walking along the path. And of course, up on the left is the hill. And meant to depict the path that they would want to travel becomes covered by rain. Heavy rain during the rainy season results in roads becoming less used, with abundant overgrowth of grasses concealing the path. Similarly, neglecting spiritual practices can be compared to, quote, being deviated by seasonal overgrowth of long grasses created by Maya. Such a person identifies himself with illusory productions of nature and succumbs to illusion, forgetting his spiritual life. So this is two verses in a row giving indication of principles behind which delusion comes, even for an aspiring spiritualist. So his audience is people of his time coming to Tokyo, not necessarily only from Japan, but educated, sophisticated, broad-thinking, visionary type people, he's giving some warning through the agency of pictures from nature. And seasonal changes come, circumstances of life come and go. And it's if one isn't fixed internally, then as changes come, then there's duality and distraction and sadness, ultimately. A road covered with grasses after rainy season is like a brahmana who is not carefully studying the scriptures. Beautiful message. Chapter 14. These people, they don't know what the Vedas are. They have some idea of something. But he's, of course, pointing to the Vedic texts and deviating from or neglecting the Vedic texts. One can easily be agitated. Now it comes to the topic of family life. the lightning becomes unsteady in its friendship, failing to remain faithfully in any one of the clouds, although they are the friends of the entire world. Just as lusty women do not remain steady even in the excellent company of men who possess excellent qualities. Now, this particular painting shows up several times in this presentation. It's one of the 48 illustrations that our artist friend produced. You know, lightning having different metaphorical applications. During the rainy season, lightning appears in one group of clouds and then immediately in another group of clouds. Similarly, lusty women do not remain steady even in the company of men who possess excellent qualities. A cloud is compared to a qualified person because it pours rain and gives sustenance to many people. A man who is qualified similarly gives sustenance to many living creatures, such as family members or many workers in business. That's the cloud. And then there's the lightning. When the husband is disturbed, the whole family is ruined, the children are dispersed, or the business is closed, and everything is affected. So it's the duty. This is now Krishna conscious family life, not just sadhus. So the importance of the male member of a family to be Krishna conscious, and then others who are dependent upon that person to be faithful and chaste. Husband and wife should control sex indulgence and concentrate their mind in Krishna consciousness, and should not be restless like the lightning. Husband and wife should control sex indulgence and concentrate their mind in Krishna consciousness, and should not be restless like the lightning. I mean, that's very nice. Lessons about life from scenes of nature. Chapter 15, the final section for this morning. The transcendental nature of the Lord and his devotees. A rainbow in a cloudy sky, sometimes likened to the appearance of Krishna and his servants in the material world. In the midst of the thunder, in the cloudy sky, there appears a rainbow that has no string. Its appearance is compared to the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his servants in the midst of the material atmosphere. Now, I was also trying to find out what this particular diagram means, and I can't remember. It's something to do with rainbows. And here's another image of rainbows. So it's compared with the description Prabhupada has given is a bow that doesn't have a string. A rainbow appears to have no guna or string like a bow. When Krishna appears before us in the midst of material interactions, he remains always unaffected like a stringless bow. Remaining fixed in the mood of service to Krishna through whatever upheavals happen in this world, that's our protection. And as Krishna remains unaffected, we can also remain unaffected. Something's going on, but we can remain unaffected. Just as Krishna is unaffected by material interactions, he can appear or disappear like a rainbow. And so also for a sadhu. Appearance of Krishna and disturbance can help free one from the qualities of material nature. Now, as I said yesterday, intentionally, I'm just going through this very quickly and just reading the text. But part of the purpose of going like this is time, but also to, in a quick overview kind of way, get a picture of how Prabhupada is poetically, taking images from nature, from the Bhagavatam, and connecting it to human society, our experience, becoming degraded, becoming elevated, being protected, getting distracted. A life, very practical terms, a life that's progressive towards Krishna consciousness. Even when there's two of the verses here, even when there's some disturbance. It really would have been nice if the book was published as Prabhupada wanted, and his participation in that event was as he wanted, and to see what would happen. But it wasn't meant to be. I may have mentioned this as I was preparing this. I happened to see something online. Maybe it was on one of the ISKCON websites, ISKCON Desire Tree or something like that. In Brazil, around the same time I was preparing all this, the devotees had a large spot, like an exhibit area within a mall in Brazil, with blow-up photos of all these paintings, and of course books in Portuguese, because that's the language in Brazil, and helping the people of Brazil understand Prabhupada's message through the artwork and through the book itself. Because it's not just selling books, it's helping to influence the hearts and the minds of people. So visuals are really helpful. Short messages are also very helpful. Connecting those short messages with visual images is also very helpful. And who knows how many people in Brazil who attended that exhibit in their mall felt inspired and took up something in relation to Krishna consciousness. But that's the intention of all of this, to help bring people to Krishna consciousness. Let's see what's going on here. Here we go. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah.
So Maharaj, I have two parts to the same question on the topic tolerance. You mentioned that tolerant devotees are eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom. But we all know there is no misery in the spiritual kingdom. Is it to instill this attitude of servitorship to Krishna? Is that the reason why we are advised by Krishna and Bhagavad Gita to be tolerant in material world, to instill servitude attitude?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. It's not, this is the strategy to get people to that place. Rather, one who has this quality indicates they have sheltered Krishna, and that's the eligibility. So being Krishna conscious in the place where there's duality, despite the duality, that's the criterion for entrance into the spiritual world. And say negatively, if one doesn't have that capacity to remain undisturbed even when there's disturbance, then that person is not yet qualified. So they have more purification. that it?
Yes, Maharaj. And I have a second part with few examples that comes to mind. So we know Gajendra pastime when he asks for Narayana's help, immediately Lord gave. And in the case of Prahlad, he was in danger by his father, and Lord Narasimha gave. We have seen several examples of Haridas Thakur in today's class. I saw this picture where Haridas Thakur is being pulled in the market. I can see some blood splashes. So my question is, Maharaj, did he really feel the pain in the body, or was he?
Well, the artist was depicting the artist's eye. The scriptural depiction is not what the artist depicted. His body was unmarked. And the answer that's given in Chaitanya Charitamrita was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu covered him. So Mahaprabhu accepted the lashes. He showed Haridas, see, his marks on my back. I was preventing them from bashing you. And Haridas fainted. So that's an artist depiction. That's limitations with contemporary depictions. It gives us something of a picture. It's better than nothing. Yeah.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I have a question regarding responsibility and dependence related to the presentation today. In one of the verses, Srila Prabhupada compares responsible men to clouds, and he also indicates like giving to the family and taking care of the family, but also he talks about in business taking care of I took it as employees. Whereas what is the Vedic understanding of one who has a business, the responsibility to one's employees?
My understanding is not 100% clear, but the principle is they're like children. So the person that has the business, the persons who are participating in their business, they're cared for like children. Not exactly, because we do things with children we aren't going to do with employees in the business, but as dependents, they're given proper care. And that doesn't just mean the salary or their food and their clothing and those necessities. But there's the like a father has the workers in the business will be inspired to work nicely for the business because of their affection, the affection they're feeling from the employer. Now that's ideal. That's Vedic ideal. How often that's going to happen? Particularly in this contaminated age of Kali, not so likely. But that's the principle. At least it's like parenting or something else, like being a government leader or something else, where you have some service. Those who are on the receiving end of that service that you're doing, how they respond is up to them. That's between themselves and Krishna. But the teacher does what teachers do, and the leader, the business head does what business heads do. And then there's sense of safety and a sense of loyalty. More likely. The age of Kali is very compromised with good character. In terms of good character, very compromised. Like, how many times did Prabhupada say, I haven't bribed these boys and girls. I don't give them money. They bring me money. So what, why? Because of love. They're living very simply. They're used to this and that. Now they're sleeping on the floor and this and that. And so why? Because of, a loving connection. They're willing, the followers are willing to sacrifice so-called happiness, material comforts, for a life of simplicity. So take that same principles into the business arena. It's not exactly the same, but there's some similarity or overlap. You know, and then there's ideal and then there's real, and you try to make the real as close to ideal as practical. With the expectation that some of the employees are not going to feel what you would like them to feel. They'll feel something else and they'll do something else. And that's just the way of life. Yeah.
My question is regarding tolerance.
Mm.
So, for example, we have a plan, and because of someone else, our plan is getting affected. And to meet the needs of someone else, if we have to change our plan, does that mean tolerance?
The last punchline was, is that all right? Is that what your question was?
Yes, is that all right to change?
It depends.
Or should we act according to?
It depends. There's so many variables. And yet there's another variable, you just hit the delete button. And do something else.
Button of someone else's needs or our.
It's not a matter of negotiating between you and the other person that has another vision or another need or something. You know, in a reasonable way, depending. So let's take the hypothetical case where the other person is reasonable, which isn't often the case. But if the other person is reasonable, then you see if their needs can be met or not, if their vision can be met or not. And then, you know, the decisions need to be made by both parties. You know, whether I continue, although it's not my vision, or if you don't modify your vision to match my vision, I'm out of here. You know, is it okay to modify? Yeah. And it, you know, as long as, let's just say this, as long as Krishna is pleased, if the modification is not goofy or compromising principles and even compromising outcomes, then you can modify. You don't have to. Then in other words, you're at a juncture point where you can decide, turn left or turn right or hit the eject button or keep going and say, I'm sorry, this doesn't match your vision. Now you can decide what you'd like to, you heard what you've had to say. And so there's so many different options. It's good, time permitting and circumstance permitting, to have dialogue. So the person, you know that the person knows that they've been heard. And whether their idea or their vision matches what is the outcome, at least, you know, that much is that they feel that they've been heard. And then, you know, someone that's taking a leading role has to make decisions. So modifying, staying the same course, hitting the delete button, etc., etc. There's different options. You know, I don't want to conflict with this person, and it seems like that's where it's headed. So, you know, let me just reroute, because there's so many options of what one can do with enthusiasm where it's not rubbing against the other person. If the person is reasonable, and one of the things that helps people be more reasonable than otherwise is if they feel they've been heard. Not necessarily that there's agreement, but they feel that they've been heard. That's an ideal scenario. And sometimes time doesn't permit to explain A to Z to another person. This is the direction we wish to go because. So again, the answer depends. The time, place, circumstance, that the individual capacity, their personality, etc.
There's an online business.
In relation to what you said, the verse in Bhagavata, Nopali,
Shrama Evahi Kevalam.
otherwise we're working very hard, but if there's no attraction to the Lord, then everything is waste actually. So in that sense, like Prabhu was saying, how to fulfill that responsibility. So everyone, it is good to have everybody in the company do the same goal.
That's utopian. Utopia means it's not reality. It's a goal to shoot for. At the same time, while shooting for that goal, it's to be understood. It's not so likely it's going to be achieved. But that doesn't mean you don't shoot for the goal. And then there's consequences when it doesn't, for oneself and for the members of a company. And it's like a temple. Or any group of people that do some stuff together. You try to bring everybody and create consensus, and it doesn't always work like that. So you have a goal, but you accept that it's not always going to work out where there's consensus. And then what do? You have to make some decisions. Something further?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yeah, we work towards it.
Okay.
Depending on the beliefs of
Well, and there's many factors. Yes, beliefs. How strong somebody is invested. When you're asking this question and he was asking his question, I was thinking of a situation where Tosan Krishna Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple, was president in ISKCON Vrindavan for some time. And he shared with me that he had a very clear idea of what needed to be done in a particular circumstance. He brought it to a group of people, and the group of people wanted something else altogether different than what he wanted. So he yielded. Now, this is your question too. But, he didn't have to. He could have said, look, I'm the president. I thought about it carefully. I'm the authority, and this is the direction you want to go. So, you're not necessarily going to reach consensus. You strive for it. Prabhupada had a way of doing that too. Something would come up. He, would ask the people in the room, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And some of them would say, whatever you want, Prabhupada. He said, I want to know what you think. And then, so he was training us to use that, even you're the leader, and you have the authority to just decide. You seek collaboration and collective intelligence. And then he would decide. Because everyone accepted him as the leader. But it's a good example of a good leader. Okay. You wanted to say something about something online?
Yes, Madam. Shyama Gopika Mataji has a question.
Okay.
She says, if we are tolerating someone which insults us, and if they are again and again showing the same behavior towards us, is it right to tolerate them every time?
It depends. It's not wrong. But the better question is that the best thing to do? It's not wrong. It's not necessarily the best thing to do. But it depends. If there's a nice example I came across where There's a story, a history, where when Sadhu went to a sacred river to take his bath in the sacred river, and he came out of the sacred river, putting on his dhoti, and someone, a harassing person, spit on him, and then he, smiled and went, took another bath, and he did the same thing again and again, and the person finally said, why are you being so tolerant? He said, because you're giving me the opportunity to take my sacred bath in the sacred river so many times. So I'm very grateful to you. And, depends. That's not normal. But, depending upon one's consciousness and the circumstance and the other person, it's, all the variables. Continuing to be tolerant is a nice option. There's other options. Anything else? Yes.
Forgive me for asking this question actually, because we were supposed to host you today, and then because of your back pain, you could not come. I know I can understand the practical thing, but in my heart somewhere, I right now like is it because we were not sincere enough with you had pain.
You're not so powerful, don't worry.
Sometimes when we receive instructions from spiritual authorities in this section, sometimes we are not logically convinced of what we are saying. Of course, our intelligence is contaminated, but that's the only intelligence we have to work with. So what do we do?
Depends. What Arjun did was he asked for clarification. And if you're in a challenging mood, it's one thing. And if you're in that I want to understand mood, it's another thing. Then supposing, the answer is, I've explained it 4 times, and you don't yet understand the reason behind. So I'm just making this request. Please comply. And then, then you make a decision. I'm not convinced. I don't understand. Because I don't understand, I'm not convinced. But I respect your position, so I'll do what you're asking. And I'll give you some feedback of how it went. It's a relationship. And it can be, way over this end or way over that end. I told you so. Or, now I understand. But inquire, if you're not clear, it's not in all circumstances you have to ask 18 questions if you don't understand. But if it's, kind of critical for you, the obstacle is, wait, really? It hurts. So then inquire, circumstance permitting. And it can be, in many cases, it can be a little later. You don't have to immediately, so in many cases, immediately do something, let some time pass. And it's not happening. Why is it not happening? I'm trying to explore within myself what's the reason or purpose behind this. It would be really nice if you could help me understand the reason or purpose behind it, because then I can give my whole heart. I could just mechanically do, but this seems to be important to me, so I'd like to really understand it. A good leader will take the time and explain it. And then some other good leaders won't. They'll point fingers and shame and blame and all those things. That's not a good leader. Situations like this, it's really helpful to think of the parenting model. When you want something and the child that you're overseeing and giving care to doesn't want that same something, what do you do as the parent? What would you like them to do if they don't understand or wish to do something else? So then that gives you some hints about what I should do in circumstances like this. Because what's important is the relationship. And when the relationship is right, then a child can easily comply, even if they don't agree or don't like it or don't understand it. When the relationship is right. The relationship is two-way. With a spiritual authority, it's a two-way, it's a relationship. Yes.
Relationship with what you advise now, because when the children are young, they're able to listen to us, or we can forcefully let them do what we want. But as they reach teens, it's actually even though we want to be very calm or something.
Even though what?
Even though we want to have a calm relationship or something, some clashes with them, they won't listen to us.
That's just life. Sometimes and sometimes. So you want to know what to do when the clashes come.
How do we as parents deal with that with the children, and they really oppose us, and then it's like whether we should let go and bring them back or wait for them to
It
come back,
depends. It's a relationship. What you don't want to do is break the relationship. And what the purpose of a relationship is elevation. So you're investing because you care, you're investing. And then you have to, then it depends upon so many variables. Maybe just let it go and maybe bring it up later, maybe so many maybes. Maybe just brush it to the side and it, like, her question was, when it happens again and again and again, what do you do? Then when there's a pattern, then it becomes more elevated in importance. So then dialogue. And if there isn't an openness in dialogue, because dialogue is two-way, then you can't, your parenting days are over, because parenting requires a relationship. It's not over, but the effectiveness kind of recedes. And teenage life is one of those times when it's like the relationship has to be changed. Prabhupada described like that. How are we doing? Yeah.
Just in the mode of your answer to Leela Sundari Mantra, you want to clarify. Is it right to summarize the discussion that what you described to me and Prabhu, to say that one of my responsibilities to my employees is to preach to them, but without expectation?
Yeah, when you extend care to others, the human dimension is I have an expectation. So to not have an expectation is transcendental. But you consistently remain on the transcendental platform, and it's very attractive. And over a period of time, you'll attract people that want the transcendental, and persons that don't want the transcendental will exit stage left. In different ways. But how you go about that, each person in a leading role will go about it in a different way, which is just fine. But there's principles. I'm not a manager of a business, but you have relationships with people, and naturally, I would assume there's some similarity. You want to have people in the workplace where there's a relationship, and not just they're good at something, and and they don't give a darn about the relationship. Because when they're good at something and there's a strong relationship, performance will go up so many %, double, because of the relationship. And there's different relationships. Anything over here? No? One dumb question, okay.
How do
develop this tolerance.
How to develop tolerance, practice it.
When we are associating with devotees, we know that we should avoid Vaishnava brother, but non-devotees, I don't think, personally, I don't take that utmost care like, to the level of devotee. So how can we develop this tolerance?
Well, one way is to see things as Krishna sees things. Jnana chakshus, Shastra chakshus. How does Krishna see? You read Bhagavad Gita and you see how Krishna sees. So then you see through the lens of how Krishna sees. In other words, here's this mode, there's that mode, there's another mode. Isn't that interesting? So, knowledge and detachment. Now, in that mode of detachment doesn't mean you don't say anything, do anything. Supposing somebody's doing something really hurt somebody, supposing somebody's beating on a kid, you do something. Is that not just, okay, I'm supposed to tolerate, there he is beating on a kid, I'll tolerate. But you have a clearer sense of what's really going on as Krishna sees what's going on. And then you can, when in that spirit, in that position of seeing as Krishna sees, then you're in better position to have an understanding of what should I do in this circumstance. Move on, say something, do something, pray, etc. See things as Krishna sees things. He can see what's what. So when you see what's what, and it's not in the devotee community, it's outside the devotee community, see as Krishna sees, and then consider what was the best way to serve Krishna in this circumstance. Maybe it's to speak up. Maybe it's to move along. Maybe it's to report to some other person who can, is in a relationship with that individual who can help them. Maybe it's call the police. It depends. You have something.
Actually, you are very much similar in line actually, and the other question. So, Bharat, so actually, we know that Maya is very strong, and every time we feel like we have been victimized, but it may not be the truth. So, Maya makes us feel like we have been victimized or we have been tolerant, but it's something like the other side will also feel the same.
Speak slower. On the other hand, what?
On the other side, the person may also feel the same that they are part of, they have been victimized or they have to be more tolerant with us. So something like it's something like the Maya is quite strong, right? And it was similar in line. I was thinking it's about the Dhruv Maharaj, right? When he felt he was victimized by his stepmother, he immediately took action. He immediately went to his mother, and then his mother instructed him, and he went to forest. It was like, although the level of victimization what he got right was not that severe, but he took drastic step to went to forest. Right. So everyone in their life feels like they have been victimized because of certain reasons, and
Many what?
Sorry. Many may feel like they are victimized because they have done something wrong in the past, and they have been punished for that, and they will continue to be in that situation, to be victimized, and some may feel like.
Where is this going? This is a long-winded something.
So something was I was trying to find a solution, but I think
So
what I heard from you, Maharaj, just now, what answer you gave to Prabhu is like we should see from Krishna eyes what he wants to see, and then we are quite relaxed. So I found that answer quite so it was very in my mind, and I find the answer what he gave.
That's one of the benefits of studying Krishna's words or studying the scripture. because then at least you have the tools. And then you align your consciousness with those tools. And then you can see with some detachment what's going on. And then you have options because you're thinking of Krishna, not, the circumstance, not the external, but you're thinking of Krishna and how to be in your relationship with Krishna in this circumstance. What's appropriate? You may not have the answer, but if you start in that space, then your life, the shape of your life and the experience of life is going to be altogether different. And more likely, the super soul can give the prompt to you. This would be appropriate. And give intelligence out of the menu, how to select what would be appropriate, because you want to please Krishna. You have the last question. Better be a good one, right?
Just to understand correctly, if we keep getting provoking circumstances and if we practice tolerance in the sense that first we artificially do it in the sense that we're agitated but we don't react, do we actually get better at it over time?
Generally, but it's not a guarantee. To say generally means you're making a Krishna connection because Scripture says. So now I'm complying with what Scripture says, which means Krishna says. So I'm trying. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. And your question is, will you get there? By trying, by practicing tolerance, although I'm not there yet. It's effort and mercy. So you or any one of us may need to feel more dependent upon Krishna for being genuinely at a heart level tolerant rather than cosmetically or mechanically. So that's, becoming Krishna conscious is effort and mercy. So the opportunity is there if you do follow, and that's half of the formula. It's not like Krishna's checking you out to see, did you mean it? Or do you really want to? No, Krishna will examine like that. Heard Prabhupada say. Here's Prabhupada. Oh, so you want me? What if there's some sense gratification? Oh, he or she doesn't want sense gratification. They want me. That's very good. What about some difficulty? Are you sure you want me? So not that Krishna doesn't know, but Prabhupada's way of describing this, Krishna wants to see. So obstacles and difficulties and hardships and things like that may be there to strengthen our determination in the spiritual goal, the spiritual destination. That's if we take the same what Prabhupada said here. Okay, Len, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.